Last week, I asked for GM mini topics to cover in 5 minutes or less, and well, this one needs more than a GM mini can offer. Hey, everybody, Bobby here from the GM table, and today we're covering chases in Savage Worlds. Well, wait, hold on a second. I want to be clear. This is not a full tutorial for the Chase Subsystem in Savage Worlds Adventures Edition.
Smithies, are they booing me?
No, they're saying Boo earns. Boo earns.
Are you saying boo or boo earns?
Look, I'm going to be honest here. That's already scheduled as the finale of Savage Worlds for Beginners. We got a ton of stuff going on there. But instead, this is still going to be super useful. So hear me out.
I was saying boo earns.
There's a secret you need to know. There's not just one chase system in Suede. There's two more. And we're going to cover them today. All right. So, like I said, we're going to cover two extra systems you can use in the core rules you probably already have to do chases. All right. We're going to cover those systems. We're going to discuss why you may want to use the main chase rules versus why you might want to use these alternate rules. We're obviously going to break down the alternate rules. Duh. And then we're going to go into little tweaks of using other rules in the core book to really amp up those rules. Let's get into it. Before we get into all the different possible rules that are actually in the book for chases, we need to look at which rules are going to be right for you. And while this isn't a tutorial for the Chase subsystem, you do need to determine whether you want to invest in doing the Chase subsystem for your session, or if these alternate, let's be honest, simpler and faster rules are what you're actually looking for. So here's the thing. The Chase subsystem is a complete, almost mini game you're running underneath the main Savage Worlds game. This is perfect if this chase is the highlight of your session. All right. You're going to be laying out multiple cards on the table, almost as if it's its own battle mat. There's going to be outcomes for each card. The system assumes you're going to be running a combat at the same time. This is going to take up a large chunk of your session. And it's going to be either the highlight or one of the highlights of your session right now. It's going to be a big investment of how much time at the table for this night is going to be dedicated to the chase. That's great. There are plenty of games where the chase is the big highlight and is the thing you're doing. But what happens if the villain just runs away and the players decide to chase him? What if the players get busted and flee and you need a quick chase scene? What if you need a fast, impromptu chase scene? Yes, you could use the big, elaborate chase subsystem to do this, but you're going to be setting up a lot. You need to have really mastered that system to be ready to do it just on the fly. And as I said, the rules already have other options for you. So if you're just adding a chase, if the chase isn't the superstar of the night, or even more likely, if the chase is kind of improvised or impromptu, then maybe these alternate options for running chases are what you're actually looking for. Okay, so now that we know we may not want the big chase rules, what are the smaller chase rules? Well, like I said, there's two of them. I'm going to start with the smallest. And this one, literally in its rule descriptions, says it can be used for chases, and that is quick encounters. Quick encounters are there for if all you need to know is success or failure. You don't need all the minutia. It's, all right, there was a chase, roll to see if you succeeded or roll to see if you failed, and then we move on. That's what quick encounters are for. I mean, they even cover combat for that, where it's a combat, but it's not really a major combat. So let's just see if you succeed or failed, or there's alternate rules we're going to get into later to see how banged up you got along the way. But again, that's for a little later in the video. As of right now, it's just pass or fail. Quick encounters are also really good for if you're pressed for time, things like con games, and you realize, oh crap, they took too much time here. The chase still needs to happen, but through the normal chase rules is going to be like 30 to 45 minutes. A quick encounter, it's like 3 minutes. 5 if it gets complicated. but we're there. We're done. If you need to cut the chase from your adventure, but for story reasons still needs to be there, quick encounters are there for you. Second one, if you've been following this channel for a while, you'll know is a personal favorite mechanic of mine, and that is dramatic tasks. You can use a dramatic task for chases. If all you need to know is whether or not, if you're chasing someone, whether or not you caught them or they got away, or if someone's chasing you, whether or not they caught you or you got away, boom, dramatic task. Thanks to the new rules for dramatic tasks in Suede, we also have a lot more options for modifying and tweaking the dramatic task. So we can get a lot of mileage out of this. The other really nice thing with dramatic tasks is while, yeah, they're going to take longer than a quick encounter, they're not going to take that long. And thanks to the point system, your players can know how close they got to catching the bad guy before he got away, or how close they were to getting caught before they got away, which are really, really useful things in upping that narrative flavor. Okay, so we know the primary rules to look at for alternate things you can do that also do chases. But Savage Worlds really shines in the way different rules and mechanics all throughout the core rules interact and play off of each other. And this is where we're going to actually dig deeper into the rules and make these alternate versions of chases still incredibly dynamic, possibly incredibly dangerous, but not much longer than doing it without them. The first thing, in quick encounters, there is an optional area off to the side called dangerous quick encounters. And typically what this is if you succeeded, you got fatigue. If you fail, you get a wound. If you crit fail, you get multiple wounds. Blah, 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 blah. We're going to take that, but we're going to need to tweak one little thing. Or we don't need to, but it's going to work a lot better if we tweak one little thing. First, all those wounds don't apply to the driver who's making the rolls. They apply to the vehicle. That is huge. Now, the little tweak we're going to want to make is that fatigue doesn't make sense if it's applying to a vehicle. Vehicles don't get fatigue. So instead, this is a house rule. This is a rules tweak. But I actually kind of wish it was just in there as an aside of instead of fatigue, if it's on a vehicle, it's shaken. Now, shaken might not sound like it matters much. You're not in combat. So being shaken's like, well, okay, I'm going to unshake before anything else happens. But this is where multiple rules in the game stack on top of each other. Because as long as we keep the vehicle rules in mind, if you are shaken or wounded, because wounded characters are also shaken, you need to make a fresh driving, piloting, whatever your maneuvering skill roll is. You need to make a fresh one to avoid going out of control. Now, all of a sudden, by adding the dangerous encounters rules, that quick encounter is very dynamic and we have a lot of possible outcomes. Because going out of control, you then roll on the table. Yeah, it's going to be longer than just a quick encounter, but it's going to be like 2 minutes instead of 1. It's still going to be very, very fast. Now, the next thing is something I do frequently, and this is 100% me molding the rules like putty. But in a lot of dramatic tasks I do, and when I do the full dramatic task video, we're going to get even more into this. But if the dramatic task is dangerous and they might get wounded during the task, I take those dangerous quick encounter rules and I put them on each roll of the dramatic task. You do that on a dramatic task that's a chase, and all of a sudden you need to worry about your vehicle taking too many wounds. All of a sudden it functions a lot more like an actual vehicle combat, and there is a lot more risk involved. So taking those, and again, we tweaked them just a little for the shaken and you apply it to the vehicle, but you do that and you put it on a dramatic task that's a chase, and you have a very, very dangerous, high stakes chase already. There's one more thing. And again, this is just taking the rules and going with it, but knowing how they can layer. All of this has assumed the driver is going against a target number 4 with modifiers, because that is the standard rules for Savage Worlds. But there are also opposed rolls. And if you make the chase an opposed roll against the enemy driver, all of a sudden the enemy is actually contributing. There's dynamic going back and forth. Things get a lot more dynamic. This also lets us handle races really, really quickly. This is something where even without the opposed roll, it matters, but in opposed rolls, it really matters. The beautiful thing about the full chase rules is everyone can be involved because the driver's worrying about the chase, but people are like hanging out the car, shooting guns. There's that combat side of thing going on. We don't need a full combat for all of that to actually still matter thanks to the new Suede rules. Because the new support rules, as long as the skill makes sense, you can do it. And there is nothing stopping from your friend leaning out and shooting at the other car just being a support role to your driving check. There's nothing in the rules that actually stops that, which means you can still have the dynamic and the feel of combat without, all right, I hit, now I roll damage compared to the vehicle's toughness. And does this happen? Or am I doing a called shot to the driver? What's that going to do for me? All of that. That's great. That's fun. But if you're wanting it to be quick and this is an impromptu one, it still has a heavy mechanical impact without us having to worry about the extra few steps, which are going to double or triple the time this one scene's going to take. This also really shines in the fact that, again, if we're dealing with opposed rules, the enemy driver's opposed, but all the other goons in the car might be shooting at you. And while we don't have to see if they hit you, we don't roll for their damage versus your vehicle's toughness. They're support rolls that are adding to the enemy driver's total. And remember, if you fail, the vehicle took a wound. So they do add to the likelihood of the vehicle being wounded, and you just narrate it as the bullets are the things that wounded the vehicle. It's all very malleable in Savage Worlds, and all of a sudden, you don't actually have to add more mechanics to get the exact same feel. Okay, there is one thing you do need to decide at the very beginning of any chase scene if you're doing opposed rolls. Because of how opposed rolls work, you need to know who is initiating the roll versus who is defending. Because whoever's initiating sets the target number. They roll first, they spend all their bennies first, and that is the target number. If the defender matches that number, they reach the target number and succeeded, which means defenders win ties. Now, a lot of situations based on the story, you'll know who initiated, and if you didn't initiate, you're defending. But if you don't know if it's kind of even, it's like, well, it could be either or. I personally tend to have the enemies initiate. First of all, it does give a slight edge to my heroes because they win ties. But the bigger thing is if you're initiating, any bennies you spend to raise your target number, you don't know what they're going to roll yet. Whereas if you're defending, you know your target number, so you know the likelihood of your bennies helping and being successful. And that metagame plays an important role in Savage Worlds. All right, so that's it. This may not have been the full chase tutorial, but it's a bit of a supplement. Personally, it's actually how I run most of my chases anyways, because I do VTTs and doing all the cards and stuff is tricky and time consuming, and I like fast games. But if you need an improvised chase scene, if you felt the full chase rules were too daunting, I hope in general this helped you put more chase scenes into your games. And honestly, more than anything, I hope it helped you see how all the rules in Savage Worlds actually play off each other. And when you incorporate all the things going on, all of a sudden, without a lot more work, you have way more dynamic games. Anyways, I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.